All right, y'all. Today I got a very special guest joining me. He's six-time New York Times best-selling author. Some of his works include "Boys Will Be Boys" about the '90s Cowboys, "The Bad Guys Won" about the '86 Mets, and "Sweetness" about the late great Walter Payton. And today we're going to discuss his latest book, "The Last Folk Hero: The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson." I recommend you get it. I got an advanced copy. It's amazing. Go get your own. I'm here with the master storyteller, Jeff Pearlman. What's going on, my man?
Master storyteller might be an exaggeration, but I'll take the compliment. So thank you.
Listen, you interview 700 plus people and you get every nook and cranny. If you can find somebody's girlfriend from college and what they did in the third grade and they're 60 years old, you're the master storyteller.
Wait, I'm going to tell you something interesting. Since you brought it up, I want to tell you how I found the girlfriend because it's kind of funny. I found
Okay.
Bo Jackson had a girlfriend in college named Allison. His wife is Linda, but he dated a girl. And someone said to me, Bo Jackson had a girlfriend in college named Allison, but they didn't remember her last name.
Right.
And Bo Jackson was in Auburn, Alabama in the 1980s.
Right.
And I decided I was going to try to find this Allison. And I found the old Auburn, literally the yearbooks for Auburn. So 80, when Bo was there, 82, 83, 45. Look through all the yearbooks. There are a ton of Allisons. There's only one African-American Allison. And I thought in the 1980s at Auburn, the odds that a black athlete would be dating, I reached out to the African-American Allison, the only Allison who wasn't a white woman. And it turned out it was his girlfriend.
That's
And that's how I
crazy.
found it.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. You do your interviewing style, your research techniques are crazy, man. So
Thank you.
let's jump right into it, man. So like you've had 9 other books, obviously, like I mentioned. Why was it the right time to do this book now and not earlier? Like, why not much earlier?
Because I thought of it recently. I don't have people want you to have this amazing reason.
Right.
It was the blah blah blah. Sometimes you don't though. Sometimes you're
Right.
just, what should my next book be? You know what? How come no one's ever written about Bo Jackson? Why has it been? He's this guy. He's an icon. People know who he is, but they don't know that much about him. He sort of vanished. It's kind of interesting. He's living. He's 60 years old. He's
Yeah.
alive. He's well. But it almost feels like he died. It almost feels like writing a book about Kennedy or Tupac or Jim Morrison or someone like, because he didn't die young, but he vanished young. And there's an air of mystique about him and what could he have been that I think lends itself to a biography. So that's it.
It's the what if factor, I'd say, right? Because he was 28 when he played football. Like his prime ended at 28, where most people are ascending. He's kind of like, it was 28, and we didn't really get to see much after that, really, as far as him at his peak physical condition.
100% agree with you. Like, it is the what if, and the interesting thing, you may disagree, but I feel this way. Like, I always say this. Let's say Bo Jackson played 12 years in the NFL, and let's say he goes down as like Jim Brown, Eric Dickerson, Walter Payton. And let's say he plays 14 years of Major League Baseball. And let's say he winds up like Gary Sheffield, or whoever. Albert Pujols has this amazing career.
Right.
That's great. He's not nearly as interesting a book. Like, the what if.
Right.
There have been a lot of athletes. I had Eric Dickerson on my podcast recently because he did a book. He wrote a book. I don't think that many people care in the grand scheme because they know what he became and they know
we saw everything. Yeah, we saw what he was supposed to be. I think what Bo is the what if, and like for me, I like to play with numbers, right? Like 5.4, carries for his career. And and then you look at that and you say, damn, what if he did play 8, 9, 10 years, like you just mentioned, right? Like at the very least, I used to always talk to my friends and I would say, if he was healthy enough, I think he had a chance of running for 8,000, 9,000 yards and maybe hitting 400 home runs, which would have been a crazy feat. I get where you're coming from. Like, it's not as exciting, but I think for argument's sake, it's like, damn, somebody hit 400 home runs and ran for 8,000 yards.
Right. But the thing that's interesting about him being younger, him retiring younger, is we can have that argument, right? And we have that debate. And like, he did average 5.4 yards per carry, which is bonkers insane. If he played 10 years, he probably wouldn't have. In fact, he definitely wouldn't have.
Like, he doesn't. He doesn't. It's just still crazy to think about it. So, like, it's just the what if factor. Right? Like all the other great athletes, like I always think, like with Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill, those are the two that come to mind. Like, what could they have been? Right? I think we're looking at 2 top 15 all time NBA talents, and then with Bo is like, just so much more left on the table. But I guess the aura and the mystique is better this way.
In a lot of ways, if Penny Hardaway stopped playing after 5 years in Orlando, or whatever it was in Orlando, and he just decided, I'm done, I'm going to walk away, there'd probably be Penny Hardaway books. The One Who Got Away, the Penny, what happened. But we saw him not being very good with the Knicks. We saw him kind of slogging across the court, gaining weight, playing small forward instead of point guard. And we know how the story ends. The thing about Bo Jackson is we don't know how the story ends, and that's what's interesting about the story itself.
We don't, and we're 10 years apart. And I remember you talking about you were a kid of the 80s. So what you were in the 80s, I was in the 90s. So I'm catching Bo as I'm 7, 8 years old, right? To finally get an understanding of him. I remember I broke my arm really bad when I was 8, and my older cousin was like a brother. He's my mother's first cousin, but we grew up like brothers. When I was getting my arm broken back into place, he said, "Will Bo Jackson cry?" And I was like, "No." And so that kind of sucked me up, and I had to hold the tears in while he broke my arm back into place. I was 8 years old. He's like, "Will Bo Jackson cry?" I'm like, "No, he wouldn't." And it cracked my arm back in. So,
oh my God,
that's crazy.
Wait, in that Bo Jackson, like he against the Yankees in a game against the Yankees, Yankee Stadium, a famous game where he dove for Deion Sanders, what turned into a Deion Sanders inside
separate the shoulder, right?
Separated his shoulder and popped it back in, which is, I've separated my shoulder. It's the most painful thing in the world. Popping it back in, no, thank you.
I'm good. I'm cool on that. I don't want any. I don't want any smoke with that. That's what doctors are for.
Don't
man.
need it. Yeah, no, thank you.
So you, like I mentioned, you had over 700 interviews, 720 to be exact, right? Took 2.5 years. Had to go through COVID, so that was a pain in the behind. Was this even grueling at all? Because I know it's a rewarding process in the end, but with all these hiccups, especially with COVID and having to call all these people, some people want to help, some people not want to help. Like, how grueling is this process to do something like this?
Very, 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 very grueling. Very. They always are. And it's almost like when you, like I have older kids now, right? And when you have, are you a dad?
I am. I do. I have teenage kids. Yeah.
Okay. We both have teenage kids.
Yeah.
And I think there's a common thing that parents of teenage kids do, which is they look back at their kids when they were little and they get very nostalgic about, oh, when I had a baby, and, you know, you're cradling your baby son or daughter, and, oh, the daddy for the first time. And you forget the nights where the kid's crying, and you forget when your kid is, there's, you know, like your kid falls and won't, and the nightmare of it all, and the sleepless nights and all that stuff. Like, you forget it later on. You become nostalgic. And when I'm promoting a book, people will be like, what was it like? And your instinct is to say, oh, it's great. It was the most fun. But like, interviewing 700 people takes a lot of work. Digging through all those articles takes a lot of work. If you're interviewing 700 people, that means probably 400 people said no. You know, it means finding things that you, or not being able to find certain things. It means digging and digging. It means a lot of sleepless nights. It means a lot of repetition. I always think of sort of, because I wrote a book about the Shaq Kobe years, and I always think about Kobe hoisting 1,000 shots when everyone else was sleeping. And it's like, yeah, he got the glory of playing for the Lakers and winning those championships. He was also in a gym by himself at 2 a.m. hoisting shots. Yeah. You know, so like, and I'm not saying there's any comparison to me and Kobe Bryant. I'm just saying, like, when things come out, you celebrate it, and you tend to forget that it's really hard. And writing a book, for me at least, is really freaking hard.
It's like any athlete says, like, you don't see the grueling work, right? We see Steph make all those threes, but you don't see what goes into the work. It's a lot. It's pain. It's a lot of pain behind it. A lot of sleepless nights, like you said. I'm sure having to call this person, call them again. You don't want to be annoying. You don't want to be a nuisance, but it's just a part of the job. You have to do it. So I see Bo wasn't a part of the project, right? But I noticed, you said that you guys spoke for about 30, 40 minutes, and
yeah,
I'm sure it was cool that, I'm sure it was cool that he was okay with you doing it. In the event that he says, I don't want you to do something like this, I don't want it, you still going to proceed? Or is it, what kind of obstacles would you face if that was the case? But it wasn't, but
I would still do it. And the thing is, he basically said, you know, I don't mind you doing this, blah, 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 blah. Now, it's one thing to say that when a guy calls at the beginning.
Right.
But what happens a lot of times in these processes is, so Bo will get a call from like whoever, I don't know, a college teammate or his dentist or whoever saying, you know, I got a call from this writer. And you get more and more of those calls, because I know what it is like to be a subject of a biography. And, hey, Bo, I got a call from so-and-so. Hey, Bo, I got a call from so-and-so. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this guy is like, he's going hardcore. And I think that's off-putting for a lot of athletes and a lot of famous people, where they're like, who is this guy? And I still would have done it because I have a really good friend named Howard Bryant, who wrote a great Ricky Henderson biography recently.
Yes, I know Howard. Yep.
Oh yeah, Howard's the best, and that book is fantastic. And Ricky was kind of reluctant about it, and not that supportive of it. And Howard said to me something. He phrased it better than I would. But he's like, basically, like, their sports careers are our sports careers, and Bo Jackson's athletic dominance was a huge part of my youth and my development and my birth as a fandom. And I'm allowed to celebrate that. And I'm allowed to write about that, you know? And like, I always say, like, is Donald Trump the only one who's allowed to write about Donald Trump? Is Barack Obama the only one who's allowed to write about Barack Obama?
Nope.
They're part of history. Bo Jackson's a part of sports history. I feel like it is okay and important for people to remember who Bo Jackson was, what he did. And if that means chronicling it, I'm okay with that.
Nah, he was different, man. I just think it's like you described him as Paul Bunyan in a lot of sense, right? Like just a lot of the things that he does, the mythical, things like running up the wall, throwing Howard Reynolds out, the Bosworth situation, just everything. And even the stories like jumping out of the pool into the concrete, like jumping over the Volkswagen, like it's crazy the mystique that they had around him. But I thank God that you had the Dick Shapp tapes and the notes that allowed you to get through that, man. How was that, man? That must have been a godsend.
It was one of the best finds I've ever had.
Yeah.
You thank God. I thank Dick Shapp. Nothing. He the late Dick Shapp, who was a great legendary journalist.
Yeah.
And he wrote Bo's autobiography in 1990 with Bo. And at some point,
a lot of people hated it.
Say that again.
I said a lot of people hated it. They said it was so arrogant, right? You were talking about in the book.
I love that book. I actually have nothing but love for that book. But yeah, there were people who gave it bad reviews. But it was like Dick Shapp decided to donate all his audio tapes and all his transcriptions and all his notes to the Auburn Library, and I was made aware of it. And it basically made it like interviewing a 28-year-old Bo Jackson.
That's amazing. That had to be a great find.
That was one of the best finds of my career.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm sure that helps you a lot, man. But I know, time, we don't have all the time in the world, but I want to talk about his impact on pop culture, right? And specifically starting like, let me backtrack a little bit. I came into, when he came into my conscience, I was young, like I said, but I didn't remember him as being a Heisman Trophy winner going to play baseball. Minor league baseball is crazy now, right? When you think about it. And I remember the Sports Illustrated cover, and I forgot what it said, but it was something like, Bo, make sure you know what you're doing, or whatever the case may be. So he makes that decision. Then obviously he ends up going to play both sports. But July 11th, 1989, it seems like it all kind of came together. All-Star game. Nike throws the campaign behind him, and just by faith, he leads the game off with a home run, gets MVP obviously, and just has a performance for the ages. And the marketing gods is kind of like hit Nike and was like they struck gold.
Yeah, well, because they were smart, lucky. They ran the biggest Bo knows ad campaign. They debuted it during the All-Star game. So Bo has this moment. And I was actually thinking, one thing I haven't brought up, you want to talk about Bo and pop culture. Like, okay, I don't know. Are you a hip hop fan at all?
I am. Yeah. Hip hop, R&B, whatever. I like it all. I like it all.
All right. So like, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I lost you for a minute, but, for me, one of my favorite songs of all time is Scenario by Tribe Called Quest.
Classic.
And literally the song starts with, hey, yo, Bo knows this. Yo, but Bo knows that. But Bo don't know. And then, all right, so that's an all-time favorite fight. But then, not that long ago, Wally and J. Cole have a song where J. Cole is making Bo Jackson references.
Right.
And it's just, he still has relevance. He still has cultural relevance, pop culture relevance. People know the name. They know Bo knows. There's something about him, and maybe it's because he stopped so young that there's a mystique about him. Whatever it is.
It is.
My son was like, you got to listen to this J. Cole song. He mentions Bo Jackson. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. In 2022, we're talking Bo Jackson and hip hop. It's neat.
I think he transcends all generations, right? It's almost like some people will always be cool and stand the test of time. Like you look at when I was a kid, like I don't know if you remember the Pro Stars cartoon that lasted for like a season was Jordan, Gretzky, and Bo. Like he had a cartoon, right? Then of course you had the Nike keeps retroing. It's the cross trainer, but we refer to it as the Bo Jackson sneaker. You know what I mean? And they made a few versions with 34 in the back. So it doesn't say like the Air Bo or whatever, but we know what it is, And then of course you got the Tecmo Bo Jackson, like the most legendary video game character that they talk about to this day, like the most unstoppable player in that game. So it's amazing how like we still talk about him all these years later.
I'm gonna break your 9-year-old heart and tell you that I didn't use it in the book, but I interviewed Bo Jackson. Didn't voice himself in Pro Stars.
I know he didn't. I found it out today. I saw who did it. I was like, crap. I saw it today.
I interviewed the guy. He was really cool. I ended up not using it in the book, but yeah, Pro Stars. Pro stars. None of them
Yeah.
did. That was not Jordan or Gretzky or Bo Jackson's voice.
No, it wasn't at all. No, definitely weren't their voices. But I mean, look, they have a cartoon, which you're the image of a cartoon. So,
Yeah.
you think about it now, like Bo. Everything we talked about with Bo, it's word of mouth. Highlights. Could you imagine him in the YouTube era? In this era now, what it would have been like for him in college? Like, just crazy. Like with an NIL, with all the money he would have made, just insane.
NIL, that guy would have made $10 million a year. He would have been. I mean, it's different times, but he would have made so much money. He was a 3-sport star, and he wasn't just a 3-sport participant. Like in college, he was a track. He was on the path of an Olympian. In football, he was a Heisman Trophy winner, and in baseball, he was the best slugger in the SEC. Like he wasn't just like Bryce Young. He was 3 Bryce Youngs.
No, he was amazing, man. He was the stuff that he did, man. It's just still like the feats and everything you hear about, like just playing with 2 cracked ribs and during certain games at Auburn, Bo over the top his freshman year. Yep. There's just so much to it, man. He's just legendary. Thank God he didn't go to Bama though, right? Because if Pat Dye doesn't get the Auburn job, who knows if Pat Dye is somebody that, like, you think back to it. Pat Dye, I watched his SEC story episode like a couple months ago, just going through that catalog on ESPN Plus.
Yeah. And
I was looking at his episode, and he talked about how his dad was just mean to everybody, black, white, it didn't matter. So Pat Dye didn't have any prejudice. He didn't care, and he gets the job. And, when that part, when you talk about in the book, when Bo comes home, he's at the table with his mom and Pat Dye has the conversation downstairs. If that doesn't happen, he doesn't get the job. Bo probably goes to Bama. I don't know if he gets to play. Maybe none of this happens, or, does he go to HBCU? Because he doesn't want to leave the state, right? He doesn't want to leave his mom.
He's not going to HBCU, although that would have been fascinating if he went to like Alabama State or Jackson State. That would have been kind of amazing.
Yeah.
He probably he wanted to go to Alabama. Bear Bryant was kind of senile at that point. Bear Bryant, I mean, Alabama saw him as a defensive player, maybe, or a bench. I do think, I mean, if we're being realistic, like Bo Jackson shows up at Alabama, the coaches see that guy for 3 days. There's no way they're not playing him. Like,
true.
We got this freshman who runs a 4.13 40 and he weighs 220. Let's keep him on the bench for a few. Let's play Paul Caruth instead. Like there's no way. I mean, there's just no way. Like
that's crazy.
Guys, it'd be like Ricky Henderson showing up in your baseball team, or Mike Trout and being like, "Yeah, you're not ready. We're gonna keep Claudell Washington in instead." Doesn't make no way.
No, I think it's crazy to think about that, right? And then, of course, like we said, he makes his way through the minors, has, his baseball career. Like I said, it was he had 9 years, missed a full year because of the hit replacement. Yep. His best season's 89, 32 home runs, 105 RBRs, 26 stolen bases. He really didn't hit well. He only hit 256 that year. He swung at everything, right?
He had no plate discipline. He didn't know how to play baseball. That's a crazy thing. He knew in the way you and I would, but he didn't know in the way George Brett would.
Yeah.
He wasn't disciplined. He was a free swinger. He couldn't move runners over. He didn't know when to steal bases. Mm-hmm. His outfield routes were crap, but he was so freakish and so athletic.
Yeah.
And he had amazing athletic instincts. And, he was a smart guy. He's not a dummy. He's a smart guy. He picked up things quick, but he wasn't a natural. He was a natural athlete. He wasn't a natural baseball player.
Well, it's like Bob Ryan said. Bob Ryan said he was doing it on raw ability because he wouldn't dedicate himself to the game, right? So just think about raw ability, right? He hit 250 for his career, which isn't great, but I mean, I don't think I could hit 250 or just raw ability. That's just hard.
No.
Major league pitching is difficult, right? And
I don't think I could hit 50.
He did.
No, really, I don't think I could hit 50. I'm 50 years old. I would not hit the ball.
It's insane. It's hard to do. I've been at the Louisville Slugger Museum, and to see how fast those pitchers come, I'm good, right?
Yeah,
it's just crazy. Before we go, man, his Raider tenure, reading up on the Raiders stuff, I didn't realize Al Davis had a thing against him. Didn't like the attention that he got. I found that to be a little weird, right? Just Todd Christensen hated him. I guess maybe because of the hobby comment, like this is my hobby, and they didn't like that this was their full-time job, and maybe it's some jealousy as well, right? Because he could play, he could play 2 sports, and he was just taking football for what it was.
I think the main thing in a lot of ways was these guys were very loyal with good reason to Marcus Allen. And Marcus Allen's one of the great running backs of all time and also a really decent guy and a great teammate. And this guy comes along and he's making more money than Marcus Allen. He dismisses football as a hobby. He's not overly gregarious or outgoing. He can't block. He's not really a great pass catcher, and he doesn't know the playbook. And he comes along and he's stealing the glory. And he did nothing wrong. It's not like Bo Jackson did anything wrong. It's not like Marcus Allen did anything wrong. But you do tend to protect those. Todd Christensen, as an example, a lot of loyalty to Marcus Allen. So I think, I just think that's what it was. And it's understandable. It's understandable. Marcus Allen was a Super Bowl MVP, and suddenly he's asked to block for Bo Jackson.
Nah, definitely, it's crazy. I know it. I heard him a lot. He took it like a professional, though. You know, he didn't gripe. He did what he was supposed to do. He did it for the team. But I mean, I know he ruffled a lot of feathers in both locker rooms, especially
Nope.
coming to Kansas City, giving out the autograph pictures, and everybody just tossing him on the floor. So it was a lot to him. You know, I didn't realize he was as aloof as he was and standoffish at times. But you know, the injury kind of humbled him a little bit. Got to Chicago, seemed to be a different type of person, and you know, opened up a little bit more towards the end of his career. I
Yep.
think maybe I'm reaching too far with this one, but I think maybe he got humbled, right? Like he had so many now he's just so gifted, right? Like I think if he concentrates on football, he's a 11, 12,000 yard runner for his career, possibly, right? I may be reaching, but I don't think I am. He's so naturally gifted, didn't lift weights. He did, as you claim, as you put out there, but not as much as he should have, right? Like guys like that, they take care of their body. You know, they're built to last, and he was, you know, he wasn't indestructible, but he was so good, man. The what if is always going
I
to
think
linger, right?
I think getting hurt probably made him a better person or caused him to grow up quick at least. And all of a sudden, you know, he was
Right.
always used to being Bo with a shine, and suddenly he's fighting
Mhm.
for a job as a DH, and he's playing on one hip, and he can't run the bases like he used to, and he can't play the outfield like he used to. And I think in a way, athletes, it would have been harder for him in a lot of ways to go from being Bo to retired. You know, superstar, hurt, retired. But he
Right.
had, which athletes need, the gradual. He had something of a gradual decline. Where his last year with the Angels, he's not that good anymore. He's a fourth outfielder. He's fine,
Mhm.
but he's not great. And he
Right.
was ready. And I think he needed that probably. And I think that was
Right.
healthy. Yep.
That was good for him, you know. But just, I mean, you capture every moment. Like I said, we could probably sit in for another 2 hours and talk about it. But I mean, it was just an amazing read. Like I know when I got the copy, I ran through it really quick. It was great. I think everybody that's a Bo Jackson fan is gonna love it. The memory, the nostalgia is gonna kick up. YouTube's gonna probably be flowing a lot more. So, you know, Tecmo Bowl is gonna get revved up once more. But this was fun, man. I really appreciate you doing this and taking your time out, man. Best of luck with this. You got any ideas about your next project
Well,
that's
thank
coming,
you.
maybe, or you kind of want to just sit back on this one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a lag. I'm sorry, I think it's a
Every
lag.
now and then. So I'm trying to sit back a little and then figure it out. Can you
Okay,
hear me now?
cool. No, I can hear you now. I'm sorry, it was a little
Yeah.
bit of a lag. I don't know if you heard my
Oh,
question. I said, do you have any
yeah.
ideas to what's next, maybe?
Yeah. I have some ideas in my head. I'm not 100% certain yet, but I'll
Okay.
let you know when I know for sure. Yeah.
All right, cool, man. I follow you on Twitter. You reposted everything on this. You reposted my picture this morning on Instagram, so I shot you a follow in there as well. So I'll be in touch, man. Hopefully we get to do this again. And thank you.
Appreciate what you said.
Yeah, you heard me. I don't know if you heard me, but I said I'll definitely be in touch via social media in the near future, man. But thank you again. Best of luck with
Please
everything
do.
with this book. All right, we'll talk. Thank you, man. Appreciate this.